Let's talk about the Thunderhammer. Rant suggestions for changing at bottom. I spent the last few weeks since patch 9 dropped stress testing all the weapons available to assault on hard siege mode as an assault main. I don't mean this to be a commentary on the current state of the assault class. Great, because I think we have enough of that. But to be honest, yeah, if someone has a good point, I mean, it is what it is. Everything I have to say, I feel, is also applicable to Bulwark, perhaps even more so, as Bulwark has to give up their shield as an additional trade-off if they want to use the hammer. So I've recently used Bulwark with the blocking hammer, and for the most part, most of the good parts about that weapon, the Thunderhammer, the blocking Thunderhammer on Bulwark, really comes from the fact that I can get shock fields on blocking. I mean, hey, that's going to help out melee damage, right? No, seriously though, very cool. That interaction should stay the same. The long and short of it is simple. The Thunderhammer simply does not carry a proper risk-reward ratio to be worth using, and there are numerous issues regarding both the risks and the rewards. Alright, so this person has a big post about the Thunderhammer, and I think considering we are kind of getting closer to a patch, it's probably a good time to talk about this. The Thunderhammer is the worst weapon in the game. Probably. Next to the bolt pistol. Maybe. It's definitely better than the bolt pistol. It's probably the worst melee weapon in the game. It's probably a better weapon than the auto bolt rifle as well. Yeah, that's basically it. Those are the two weapons the Thunderhammer is better than. Those are the two weapons. I mean, even the heavy bolt rifle, I will admit, is pretty good right now. But you need a lot to make that weapon work. I think the Thunderhammer is kind of in a similar spot to the heavy bolt rifle, at least before the heavy bolt rifle had a fair amount of buffs. The Thunderhammer right now, I think the only buff it ever received was recently when they made block weapons very powerful, and now you can get really strong one-shot builds going with the assault class. But still, it's really hard to use that weapon as a traditional melee weapon. I did have fun with the fencing Thunderhammer. However, you can definitely notice when the gaunts and, when the mobs are too large, just swinging that Thunderhammer can really put you into a bad position to just get a whole bunch of chip damage. So, I mean, if you enjoy the Thunderhammer, trust me, I also enjoy the Thunderhammer. I like the weapon, but I would like to see it improved 100%. So yeah, let's go into this post. Let's see if there's any sort of, changes that are easily applicable by the devs, something the devs can just, patch right in. That would be cool. But yeah, like I said, this is a long post. So if you don't have something to eat right now, yeah, go get something to eat. Which hammer to use? I feel like the hammer got mostly left behind when it comes to patch 9, attempting to diversify playstyles based on weapon types. While the black hammer feels about the same as it did before, both the other hammers can't really capitalize on the improved speed from using balance or fencing. Yeah, the way I capitalize on those weapons is simply by just parrying for the most part. The speed stat has zero effect on the charge up time for the aftershock, nor does it improve the speed in which you perform aftershock ground slams. So people kind of get confused when I talk about, faster weapons and charge attacks. It's just so you can, you swing a fast attack, and then you go for the charge attack. That definitely speeds up if that original fast attack got faster. But yeah, I understand. Yes, the speed of the weapon does not affect the actual charging or the speed of the charging, but still, if you have faster basic swings, it's now easier to apply a charge attack within those combos, just because the combos themselves are faster. That's kind of where I come from with that. I do think the fencing Thunderhammer into the slams does feel pretty good, but maybe it's not doing enough damage. Maybe. Apart from light attacks, even the fencing hammer still feels slow and unwieldy to use. I think it's yes, obviously slow, but it's compared to what we had for patch 8 and below Thunderhammer, I think the fencing Thunderhammer is an improvement. It did make an improvement to just be a little bit faster. But yeah, I mean, still, if you compare it to like the fencing chainsword, yeah, the fencing Thunderhammer looks terrible. I agree. The cleave stat doesn't affect the performance that much either. Yeah, I mean, dude, there's been so much cleave talk recently. I've kind of just let people have that because they probably know more about cleave than I do. But still, when it comes to cleave, I kind of just try to rely on giant AoE attacks, what the Thunderhammer can do. The assault class is great at doing that. as the hammer can hit so many targets by default that it's still capable of performing adequately versus groups of enemies, even with the fencing's reduced cleave. It doesn't matter that much which version of the hammer you use, they all feel quite samey in terms of how their speed cleave affects general performance. Effectively, this means there's not much reason to not use the block hammer, as the damage output is the only stat that really matters. Well, also getting gun strikes. If you really need gun strikes and you can get armor back on gun strikes, using a fencing or a balanced thunder hammer can definitely put you in a better position to do that. The perfect block mechanic is also very important on the hammer, but we'll get there later. Okay, yeah, I bet, because holy cow. Which hammer to use? I like the details they put into this. Great post so far. How about its horde clear? Alright, so the section before this was about contested health. I'm going to skip that one because we all know the Thunder Hammer's contested health. There's a bugged perk for the charge attacks, and then we also all know, since the weapon's super slow, it's obviously going to have a tough time getting contested health back. We've talked about this extensively since the devs had their poll, so just going to skip that one for now because I really like the direction they are taking on focusing on the Thunder Hammer, and there are parts of it that we've talked about recently that I think affects all melee weapons, so let's just try to focus on the Thunder Hammer here. The Thunder Hammer is capable of serving as a functional crowd-clearing tool, as it can hit a high number of enemies with each attack compared to other enemies. But at the same time, it's only alright for actually clearing space. The damage radius of Ground Slam Aftershock originates from the head of the hammer, but the radius isn't wide enough to effectively knock back enemies behind you when you're surrounded. So you're gonna have fodder enemies nibbling on your bum. Oh my god. Sometimes there's this... Yeah, that's some spicy language. Holy cow, dude. Yeah, sometimes I wish I kind of like look over things so stuff like that doesn't catch me off guard, but like, yeah, just sometimes I imagine somebody like a space marine trying to, you know, tell me what they think about the Thunder Hammer, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey man, you better be careful. You're gonna have nibbles on your bum. It's just... Alright, whatever makes the post more fun to read is definitely something I agree to. If you want to actually get into the thick of things, you can get a perk to increase the radius of Ground Slam to correct this issue, and that perk basically mandatory as far as I'm concerned. Well, not to mention, that's pretty cool, but also that should also help you get contested health back, but it doesn't because of the bugged perk, right? So that's a little unfortunate. At the same time, you could also just use a chainsword and achieve similar results with less risk by taking advantage of the shoulder bashes and stomps. I mean, yeah, correct. The Power Fist can't hit quite as many enemies at once, but even with the minimal charge up time, its heavy attacks can be spammed to take big chunks out of a crowd quickly and from a safe distance as they approach. Power Sword also excels at clearing space. Power Whirl. Just swap it to its heavy stance and bulldoze through swarms of enemies while generating free gun strikes with every single hit. That also works, yes. All this to say, the hammer is supposed to be good at killing hordes of enemies and clearing space on paper, but in practice, it's not substantially better than anything else, excluding the combat knife. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Dude, I like the combat knife. I like the combat knife quite a bit. But yeah, that's a good point. That's definitely a good point. There's no stomping with the Thunder Hammer. So, I mean, even if you have like wide swings, they're wide almost to a detriment to, like, they're slower, essentially. So, yeah, if you don't have contested health regeneration and you have slow swings, it's going to be hard to take out mobs. That's just a fact. The Thunder Hammer is like the only weapon that, I think the only melee weapon that needs a buff. But it's like a technical buff, so this is why a post like this is good, so we can really go through everything that is holding this weapon back. But the damage is good, right? Not really, at least not in a way that really stands out above its competition or compensates for its flaws. In order to kill majorous enemies, you need to charge it up just as long as you would with the Power Fist. Except the Power Fist has better range and doesn't make you vulnerable to taking hits for an extended period of time while performing the attack. I mean, the Power Fist charge attacks are just faster than the charge attacks of the Thunder Hammer. And then, yeah, I think range is is definitely a fair element to apply here. Trying to break majorous enemies with light attacks, ground slams, takes way too long, if not even longer than just spamming half charge attack heavies on the Power Fist, spamming light shoulder bash, or light stomp on the chainsword, or just spamming Power Rake on the Power Sword. The Power Rake is very good. Yeah, dude, honestly, the damage for the Power Rake, yeah, it does make the Thunder Hammer look pretty bad. I do agree with that. Yeah, that's fair. If you can fully prepare an aftershock and get it directly connect for the whole attack, you can deal good damage, but due to the slow speed of the attack plus the low range, it's very difficult to get that damage to properly connect, especially versus extremist terminus enemies that actually warrant the effort. Well, yeah, extremists, they're moving around too much. More often than not, enemies can just dodge out of the way while you're performing aftershock, or they just knock you down and cancel your attack altogether. The best remedy for this is to take advantage of the perfect block mechanic, or get hyper armor, I guess. If you can, well, also, yeah, there are super heavy attacks that will still knock you out of hyper armor. That's fair. If you can get 2 block stacks, and then landing aftershock will stun lock any enemy in the game, excluding Carnifexes and the Trigon in Extraction, and allow you to connect with the rest of the attack. It's exfiltration, right? But yeah, I mean, I've the Trigon Prime, when it comes to fighting the Trigon Prime with a blocking weapon, it's kind of wild that the Trigon Prime can literally change the speed of its combos. So for me, that's just, I don't know. One day I'll focus on that. I've defeated the Trigon Prime in a team with a blocking weapon, but I have tried to 1v1 the Trigon Prime with a blocking weapon before, and I got it pretty low before I died. I'll go back to that one day, but I thought it was very fun, and I definitely noticed I needed to get a little bit better with blocking weapons. Hence, why I also brought it out with Bulwark recently, because I definitely wanted to see how it felt using a blocking Thunderhammer on Bulwark, as opposed to blocking Thunderhammer on the Assault class. Which, with Bulwark, Intimidating Aura, the shock fields, I mean, you don't have slams, but you do have heals, so I think it's comparable. I do think the Bulwark is very good with the Thunderhammer. That's a lot of words, but how would I try to fix it? Despite my complaints of its moveset being slow to perform, I don't actually want it to be faster. I feel like its slow speed gives it a feeling of weight and power that is appropriate for a two-handed weapon of such heft. I agree. I like the way they are keeping the weapon in its identity. I like that. What I want are changes that enable it to feel more powerful despite its slow speed. You should feel like your attacks have some serious weight behind them in a way that enables you to overpower enemies. The Thunderhammer attacks need improved stagger, I agree. You can use 2 perfect block stacks to stimulate how that should feel. Releasing a Giga Strength Aftershock that flattens anything in your way. Right now, that's the only time swinging the hammer really feels like it has the proper weight and impact that such a cumbersome weapon should. Okay, so yeah, have the attacks feel more similar to the double stack blocking attacks? I mean, in that direction, sure, but obviously the double stack blocking attacks should be that powerful for a reason. But yeah, I agree with overall damage increase should be fair. If you and an enemy both attack at the same time, by default your attack should overpower and interrupt their attack. Well, yeah, also stagger increase. I see, they just want the stagger. I think it really depends. If you're doing an aftershock, if you're doing like a charge-up attack or maybe even a running attack, it should stagger that much. I agree. The basic attacks, probably not as much. Not the other way around. It should feel like you're absolutely bullying your enemies when you drop the hammer on them. When you drop a charge attack, yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Charge attacks for Thunderhammers do feel very underwhelming. It should be able to ignore enemy block stance, namely gaining the ability to crunch a Tyranid Warrior crossing its bone swords, break a Chaos Terminator that attempts to parry your strike, and properly punish a Biovore for attempting to ignore you when you get behind it. This is also... Wait, ignoring block stances? I like that idea a lot. I like that idea a lot for the Thunderhammer. Especially against Biovores, that is kind of interesting. This also helps the hammer feel like it has the proper smashing power to justify its slow attacks and give it a unique niche in the armory that the other safer melee weapons cannot achieve. I like the way this guy's thinking. This is 100% very good suggestions. If your enemy saw red flash, blue flash, when you attack them, the Thunderhammer should be a red flash. Get out of the way or get punished, no parry, no blocking. Dude, I really like the idea of this a lot. This is probably some of the best balance changes, or some of the best balance suggestions that I've seen in a very long time. The contested HP regeneration absolutely requires improvement. Yeah, this is like the only weapon that really needs it, to be completely honest. I mean, the combat knife is fast enough to get some contested health back, but the Thunderhammer, you just can't get any. You just can't get any contested health back. You should be able to afford to take some hits. If doing so gives you a chance to smash a big group of enemies, given that the vote for contested HP rework appears to be favoring melee over range. Really? How long ago was this? This was like 4 days ago, I think. I'm not 100% sure. I gotta check. because I was looking at a different post that was 4 days ago, so this might be even sooner. But regardless, 60% versus 40% respectfully, is that true? Well, I guess we'll talk about that. I'm hoping we'll get a chance to see this aspect improve by the end of the year, maybe. So, just in case you're like super worried about the 60% versus 40% voting on the melee over ranged contested health regeneration, if you're worried about that, the classes you should be worried about are sniper, tactical, and heavy. And heavy and tactical both have ways to circumvent whatever they do for the rework, because one has physiology and the other one has strategic stand. So that's pretty good. I still don't think this is a necessary change, and this voting 60% to 40% definitely feels a little suspicious. I don't think this is the same it is. I don't know. Maybe I need to check it. I should probably check it. But yeah, I'm surprised so many people want the rework. I mean, and if this is the case, we will be seeing this in the PTS. Sheesh. All right. Well, that definitely kind of took me off the tracks of this post a bit. But still, I agree with all of these changes. Yeah. Honestly, you know what? When it comes to the melee versus ranged contested health changes, I'm gonna have to save this for a different conversation. We're already like 10 minutes deep into this, so I have to keep the subject about the Thunderhammer. I gave you guys a little bit of hints to help you out there for the contested health rework, but ultimately the Thunderhammer, I believe, does need a contested health adjustment. Even if no other melee received a contested health adjustment, the Thunderhammer does need one, at least. Just a small adjustment to contested health regeneration. I think this is fair. But yeah, these are very good suggestions. Improve stagger, block resistance, going through block, and contested health regeneration improvement. I agree. This would actually definitely fix the Thunderhammer. I think this is a great post. Let's go into the comments to see how people feel about this one. In general, I love the changes that came with 9.0, but I agree that the Thunderhammer lost ground with the patch. Before, Thunderhammer enjoyed the niche of being the one-shot with ground pound weapon, with different versions being able to hit different breakpoints with different perks. Now, at least one variant of all the assault melee weapons can hit the critical major's one-shot breakpoint. I think this makes sense, as ground pound is a class skill, but it leaves Thunderhammer in a tough spot. Now, I think the only niche Thunderhammer fills is being able to one-shot without precision strike. Yeah, I mean, dude, yeah, the thing about the Thunderhammer that really bothers me is the amount of times that I'm not even using the melee attacks on it. I mean, the running attacks into charge attacks I like using, but those are like the only melee attacks I actually use with that weapon. Like, the actual swinging of the weapon doesn't feel as good. Obviously, we went over that. So when I'm using this weapon, a lot of times I'm really just doing slams or shock blocks with bulwark, or parrying, obviously. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate. This weapon definitely needs some help, but to be honest, it probably needs more help than just contested health changes. This lets it do a pure ground pound build better than other weapons, but your ability to cycle ground pounds depends on there being abundant minorists around. Once they are cleared and you are out of jetpack charges, you are left with the problems you outlined. And all of this only applies to Assault, and Bulwark is just out of luck. No, Bulwark has Intimidating Aura, man. We just did this. But yeah, the Bulwark uses the block hammer in a way to just block attacks for Intimidating Aura. I mean, essentially you could get that out of any block weapon, right? But I guess that's neither here or there. We're really just focusing on the weapon itself. So the fact that Intimidating Aura and Shock make it usable definitely isn't that good of a, positive. I want the light attacks to be able to proc gun strike, so I actually have a reason to use them over charge heavies. I think that's fair. I mean, you can do that with running attacks too, right? But yeah, overall, that's definitely a good point. Now, when it comes to the Thunderhammer, I do think the Thunderhammer, like other melee weapons, are going to get buffed contested health, in which case ranged contested health is going to be nerfed, at least on the PTS. We will see how that works out. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of changes coming with this game, so hopefully the Thunderhammer can get some positive changes. Hopefully the Thunderhammer can get some buffed attacks or something. We will see. But for now, we might need to prepare for some contested health changes. We're definitely going to be talking about that later, because yeah, I'm going to need an entire other video for that. But for now, these are some great suggestions for fixing the Thunderhammer. at the very least, making sure that the charge attacks are just a little bit stronger, and also making sure that the Thunderhammer has some unique properties, like, you know, more stagger. That definitely makes sense for the Thunderhammer, and to be able to hit through block stances, I think would be very interesting as well. So we will see, but yeah, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this, and thanks for watching.